Hello, good evening, everybody. Uh, let's see here. Welcome to the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee's panel discussion on winning 2023 union contract battles and building a fighting labor movement. My name is Lawrence Sneed. I am a software engineer at a firm currently. I am a volunteer with the organization EWALK. I post tweets and memes online to ensure that people stay engaged and think critically about labor issues that will be discussed tonight. And so I look forward to hearing from every single one of you. Without further ado, let's move forward. I'm going to give you a little backstory of what's going on, but here we go. At least 150 large union contracts are set to expire this year, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Private sector union density is at 6%. Strikes are at historically low numbers. Workers' wages have stagnated for decades while legal protections and working conditions erode. Popular and now a case before the Supreme Court, Glacier Northwest versus the Teamsters, seeks to diminish the value of strikes by holding unions liable for losses incurred during work shutdowns. A pro-Glacier decision could reduce legal protections for traditional strike activities and precipitate employer lawsuits against unions. Rank and file workers and progressive caucuses are determined to reverse the union's downward spiral. During this hour, we'll focus on two of the largest contract battles of 2023 and the rank and file caucuses shaping the fights. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters UPS contract expiring July 31st is the largest private sector union contract in the US, covering 340,000 package car drivers and warehouse workers, nearly 64% of the UPS workforce and 24% of the Teamsters total membership. The United Auto Workers, UAW, Big Three contracts expiring September 14, the cover 150,000 UA members at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. Our panelists today are Scott Holdison. Let me know how I did. Chair of Unite All Workers for Democracy, UAWD. A rank and file UAW Reform Caucus, Shante Sanders Beasley, UAW member and VP of UAW Local 869 at Stellantis Warren Stamping Plant. Antonio Rosario, an activist with the Teamsters for a Democratic Union, TDU, and lead organizer with the Teamsters. Carrie Dahl was the organizing director for the Teamsters BMWED union for 7 years and is now back at ILWU. TDU is a grassroots rank and file movement for democracy founded in 1976 at a time when the Teamsters union was controlled by organized crime, with officials embezzling union funds and negotiating sellout contracts. TDU spent 2 decades getting organized crime out of the union and 2 more to build greater rank and file control. In 2021, the TDU supported Teamsters United Slate won. The TDU supported Teamsters United Slate won the election, with Sean O'Brien elected international president. TDU and allies are still working to rebuild Teamster power. They face other organizing challenges as well. Amazon and FedEx, both essentially non-union shops, are strong UPS competitors. O'Brien has promised stepped up campaigns to organize Amazon warehouse workers. In 2020, UAWD was formed as a UAW political caucus to fight for equality, democracy, and accountability in the union. By the end of 21, a years-long federal investigation into UAW had resulted in the prosecution of 16 officials, a court-appointed independent monitor, and a member referendum that led to one member, one vote elections of officials. The resulting UAW election this year was similar to the leadership shakeup in the Teamsters in 2021, end quote. A UAWD-backed election slate won every race it challenged, with President Shawn Fain, Secretary Treasurer Margaret Mock, and a majority of the International Executive Board being elected. This marked an end to 80 years of top-down one-party rule. President Fain has pledged to put the members back in the driver's seat and regain the trust of the rank and file. They face other organizing challenges as well. More than half of all U.S. auto workers are non-union, and although the big three are making record profits, they continue to lose market share to non-union automakers. Shante, and then Anthony, could you please lay out the timeline for significance of and primary objectives of the 2023 contract negotiations for your unions? What are the union's strengths and concerns? 6 minutes.
Hi. Let me start with I'm a Zen veteran, so I'm considered a soldier. So when we speak of timelines, that can go in a lot of different ways as far as preparing the rank and file. I can specifically speak for my local who during the vote voted close to a little over 70% for the Members United slate. So what we're preparing for is right now we're doing strike preparedness because the probability of a strike is pretty high. So I'm looking to get my members prepared. We're letting them know to start to save because it could be a long haul. I mean, let's look back at the GM strike. They were out a few months. So, but I think we'll be out maybe a little longer. So we need to educate our members. There's been a lack of education going on for years, and this is the time to get them ready. A lot of our younger members aren't familiar with COLA. COLA is a big thing that we're going to go after. The healthcare issue with our younger members where they don't get health care after retirement. We want to be able to secure that. Pensions for all, the equal pay issue. There are, several big ticket items that we want to go after, but in order to achieve that, we all have to be on the same page. We all have to be fighting the same fight. We don't need a division. And I think under President Fain, who I've known from, Kokomo days, Shawn is a fighter. And that's exactly what we need at this point. We need a leader that's going to take us into battle that we can trust and know that he's not going to just get us out there and leave us out there hanging. And I believe Shawn can get the job done. It's just a thing that we have to get our membership, because we only had a small portion of our membership to vote. So we have to reach out to the members who didn't get involved, and we have to get them comfortable with the direction that we're going in. And that's going to take a lot of talking, a lot of preparing. And it's May now, contract expires in September. I suggest that we start doing classes. I know that's what we're going to do to get our members prepared. We have to put boots on the ground. We have to go hand to hand, just like we did in the election, and start explaining these things that our members need to understand, because I've had to walk a picket line. So it's nothing new to me, but some of our members have never had to do that. Some of our members don't know what it's like to have your paycheck cut in half. So we have to get them prepared, and we all just need to be on the same page at this point.
Thank you for that. That sounds like a plan to me. Antonio.
Hi.
I said Anthony earlier, disregard.
That's fine. Anthony, Antonio, Tony. I go by many names. Just don't call me late for dinner. So, well, the strengths and concerns, and negotiations and the significance of everything. I mean, I go back to 97, right? I was like 22, 23 years old during the 97 strike. About 185,000 workers hit the streets, and we really made an impact. And I see that there's going to be a big difference this time. There's been an upswing in how people feel about the union, about all these new workers are organizing, and there's new unions, right, popping up, and Starbucks workers want a union, Amazon workers want a union, Chipotle workers want a union. Everybody's unionizing. So it's like becoming a popular thing amongst a lot of younger folks these days, which is really inspiring. One of the things I would say is UPS, with this year in 2023, there's going to be over almost 350,000 workers that are willing to hit the pavement. And, and it's pretty significant, because if anybody doesn't know, that's about 6% of the GDP that stops moving right off the back. That's a tremendous amount of power to wield, a tremendous amount of leverage that we have as workers. And I think it's very important. And one of the concerns was originally would be that, of course, like most corporations, they like to try to divide and conquer, right? So you have different classifications. You have full-time workers, part-time workers, you have car washers, clerks, you have people that load the trucks, unload the trucks, and of course the face of the company, right? The men in brown, the UPS truck drivers, the UPS package car drivers, the UPS feeder drivers. And a lot of times the company likes to parade them around like arm candy because they make good money, and they say, well, why would these workers want to strike? But they forget about the 60% of the workforce that's not the face of the company, right? The workers that are inside the warehouse that don't get that kind of admiration because they don't see them. These workers are working just as hard in more brutal conditions. And the company doesn't ever acknowledge them or show them in pictures. It's always the man delivering the package. And that's one thing that we've had a great time overcoming, though, the wedge that they try to put between the workers and the union, and between the workers that the wedge that they try to put between the workers, because since Sean O'Brien got elected, from the beginning, he's been the rhetoric, right, has been preparing the workers to strike. And you don't just say you're going to strike without preparing the workers. It's been nothing but education from day one when he got elected. It's about hitting the gates, asking members to fill out surveys, asking the members to use their voice, tell us what it is that you want, so that we can understand what it is that you're fighting for. And then once all that was put together and we had a huge compilation of concerns and grievances and everything that people wanted, we started hitting the gates again, right? A year out from the strike, we had rallies all over the country, UPS workers engaging with part-timers, drivers, all engaging one another, talking about what we're fighting for, handing out leaflets, palm cards. Again, just a week ago, workers at UPS everywhere across the country taking pictures with placards, United for a Strong Contract, fighting together. It's very important. Education is key. You want to make sure your workers are educated. We've had contract action team trainings. So when we have these CAT trainings, we're having them all over in different regions to make sure that everybody can get to one. And it's been very, very inspiring, because a lot of the workers are actually talking to one another in these meetings, and they're talking about their concerns, and you feel like it's one strong united front, which is a big deal. Another thing, a lot of these workers, a lot of the gripe too is they were essential workers, right? They were out there delivering things when people weren't going outside. Not only were they getting sick, but some died, and this is how the company repays the workers. A company that made 13.9 billion, I believe. The CEO, Carol Tomade, made $27 million with everything. So, the CEOs are lining their pockets, the shareholders are lining their pockets, and they're not giving enough to the worker. They don't want to share with the workers, and they're forcing us to strike. If we strike, it's because the company is not adhering to the demands of the workforce that for the last few years has really been, going above and beyond for their communities, going above and beyond servicing the people in the industry, businesses, people at homes, and it's just aggravating and frustrating, and for me and for all the workers out there. It's about time that we're due. So that's why we're threatening to strike, because we've had enough. It's been enough concessions over the years. I believe Sean O'Brien was asked about flexibility, and he told him straight out, you've had flexibility for 5 years, you did nothing with it. You know, in 2018, the Hoffa regime rammed the contract down our throat where we voted no. So yeah, we're done with concessions, and now's the time. You know, we're fighting to end a lot of things. The two-tier job that was created in 2018, which we call the 22-4. You know, a lot of companies are dealing with this two-tier issue, and it's completely unnecessary. These workers the job was sold as workers doing 2 combo jobs, trying to help relieve overtime, and they're not doing that. They're simply working just as drivers at a lesser rate. It's not fair to workers. It's not fair to anyone. Creating new full-time jobs, you know, back in 97, Ron Carey said it himself, part-time America don't work. So yeah, you're damn right. It's not, part-time America's not working. You know, we want full-time jobs. These workers want full-time jobs, and especially the pay for the part-timers. I spoke about the full-timers, right, and being paraded around by the company because they make a fairly decent amount of money, but I'm sure they deserve more too. Everybody wants and deserves more for sure, especially after all the work they did. But the part-timers especially, they've been making for the most part $15 an hour minimum wage in most places. Some places it could be less, some places a little more, but that's not a living wage. That no one should be making that, and that's one of the big things that we're going to turn around. It's getting rid of those two-tier jobs. It's raising the part-time wages and the subcontracting, because now everything is right. They want UPS to be like Uber. You know, they want packages Uber to people's addresses. This is the flexibility they want. They want to be able to work people whatever day of the week they want. No, that's not happening. We're not going to agree to those terms. So, you know, besides that, there's just so much going on, and TDU has been a big help in a lot of the trainings and education, getting members prepared to strike, and and alongside IBT, it's been a great coalition between them. The Teamsters United slate has really come through. As he mentioned earlier, you know, TDU's been fighting for decades, you know, one against organized crime. It took a few decades, finally got the first internationally elected Democratic officer in office, Ron Carey. And then later on, here we are again, getting the Hoffa regime out and getting Sean O'Brien elected with Fred Zuckerman, who have made a big difference. You can see the morale of the workers. Everybody's ready. We're just waiting for the word. You know, and one of the big things O'Brien did was that they did differently this time was they did the supplements first. Usually they did the supplements last. So when they got to the bargaining and they wanted to negotiate the national language, O'Brien said to them, hey, what's going on with the supplements and the riders? You know, I don't hear anything from the Western region, the Central region, Local 804, what's going on? And, you know, they haven't been done yet. He's like, well, guess what? You're not talking to me until you take care of those. So let's not even have this conversation. And because of that, these people have been working late hours overnight. It's been amazing. At one point, O'Brien, they even said to him, listen, you got us working some late hours. And he said to them, well, now you know how our drivers feel. Because that's another thing, right? Excessive overtime, another thing we're fighting. So yeah, we got some real fighters in the leadership right now, but it's not about them just, right? It's about the rank and file. It's about building it from the bottom up. It's about preparing all the workers, educating all the workers, and getting them prepared for what's to come, making sure that they're saving their money, making sure that they're ready. And one of the big things that I would have to say in ending is that UPS better watch out. If they don't meet the demands of the workers on this one, they got till July 31st. And yeah, if they're not ready by July 31st, there's going to be 350,000 UPSers out there on the streets, and we're not going to be alone. We've built some serious relationships with a lot of good people, a lot of organizations, a lot of communities. It's going to be way bigger than 97. So be prepared for one hell of a fight.
Excellent. I mean, I appreciate what you both have said thus far. Oh, hold on. There we go. I appreciate what you both have said, Antonio and Shante. Let's bring in Carrie. Carrie, in the book, Labor, Power, and Strategy, you talk about the vital work needed to reorganize the members of bureaucratic business unions, as the Teamsters and UAW had been for several decades. Even in sectors with high union density, worker organization today is insufficient to use strategic positions to make deep changes in society. Political lobbying and culture air wars air wars can't deliver the goods. Could you discuss why we need strategic organizing, how we can grow rank and file involvement, and what the hurdles and opportunities are in the American labor movement? 9 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thanks to Shantae and Tony for those great comments. I think we're in a moment of extreme hope in the labor movement right now. Certainly with President O'Brien coming into office, that was a great shot in the arm, particularly to Teamsters on the American Railroad. That's where I had the great fortune of doing 8 years of internal organizing with the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way, which is one of the Teamster rail unions. But also, Sean Fain and the team coming to power inside the UAW is a huge moment. With some real challenges, right? They've got very limited amount of time to do that education that both Shantae and Tony talked about. And then equally as important, to involve the members in escalating campaigns to really back off the employer and help the employer, not to mention the rest of the public, understand that there need to be real improvements in the working conditions and pay and benefits for these workers. So it really is very cool to have representatives from both of those struggles with us tonight. These are very massive struggles in the private sector, in the economy for the United States, and they will have international ramifications. It's very nice to see this conversation brewing. I wish it was happening inside my home union, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. Folks may realize that we've been without a contract since July 1st out here on the West Coast, and there is little to no conversation about educating the rank and file, not to say to involve the rank and file in meaningful escalating activity versus our shipping line employers here on the West Coast. So we've basically been left to make it up on our own. And it's no surprise that here we are in April. It's been over 10 months of negotiating, and we have no transparency in the bargaining process. So we don't know what we've got. So this is a big problem. And I see this as a big challenge for the entire labor movement. If the historically progressive or left-wing ILWU is going backwards, that will have ramifications on many different private sector struggles, most notably the UAW Big Three. Much of the GMs, for instance, that go for export go through our coast. We load those in the port of Benicia and Richmond constantly. And some of us would love to be in deeper solidarity with the UAW struggle later this year. Also, many of the parts that end up in assembly plants come as containerized cargo through our hands, and hopefully our leaders will find each other and work together. The challenge, as I see it, is really threefold when we're thinking about building power for our incumbent membership in contract struggles. Number one, much of labor lacks an inherent left wing, an intelligent left wing. We are, heavily beladen with bureaucrats and folks that want to play legislative games arm in arm with whatever politician in Washington will listen to them. But we don't have a transformational left wing inside our labor movement by and large. Now, TDU has played that role inside the Teamsters, and I think much of the exciting work that's being done in terms of UPS preparation is coming from that channel. The second point is that the members are incredibly isolated and almost intentionally, in most cases, alienated from their leadership. And so they don't have access to the all-important educational resources necessary to really understand where they are in the national economy, let alone the global economy, and how they can fight back. It's very intimidating for most of us to go to work at a multinational corporation and try to figure out ways to fight the power. Obviously, we're in a union because we want to, aggregate our power, not act as individuals. And so that alienation is a huge, huge problem. And certainly in the railroad sector, it's led to some very strange political dynamics where members coming to us with sort of pre-industrial rural backgrounds and the politics that follow all of a sudden find themselves in heavily industrialized, highly capitalized situations and have a very difficult task to make sense out of any of it. So that should be the role of the union. That's education, that's involvement, that's transparency. We don't have enough of that. Finally, the third point about our unions is that they intentionally lack the capacity to do this work of member engagement. So when we're spending money on the representational side of what we do, or over donating to various different politicians and their causes, or quite honestly, just being top heavy and having way too many bureaucrats at our international unions or at our locals that aren't doing much, that seeps away from the organizing capacity that we need to engage the membership and learn from the membership. I think Tony made a really good point about what the Teamsters have done with this UPS fight is really trying to listen to the members and hearing from them what they need and how they think they're going to get what they need, right? So yeah, we don't have a left. Members are alienated and isolated, and we need to build capacity. The good news is that labor's got a lot of money. I think this is widely known now. Specifically, the international unions are sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars and other kinds of investments that could be liquidated to invest in the project of going to the members, finding them, and having deep conversations. This is expensive. The project I directed at the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way went on for almost 8 years. At one point, we had 12 organizers. We had about 30,000 members. We went through over $10 million in that time, which for our little union was a lot of money, as folks might imagine. So when you think about the work of getting out to 350,000 UPS workers, across the map, or getting into all of the assembly plants and part suppliers that are going to be key to the big three, you can see that it's going to be very, very costly. But if we don't do it, the cost factor is going to be much, much higher. So to me, it's a function of will. I think, again, with Brother O'Brien, Brother Fain, and the teams that, work to get them in, and the leadership cadres that they built up around them, I think there's great hope that we're going to see some of this strategic, intentional, internal organizing predicated upon rich education, one-on-one conversations with members, and then developing the leadership capacity of the members to lead their coworkers into struggle. What won't work is if we throw people out on a picket line and expect that they're going to succeed. So, this is sort of be my last point, is that in 2019, as Sister Shantae mentioned, there was a big strike at GM, and workers were out on the bricks for weeks on end, but nobody from the UAW came to the rail unions and said, hey, we've been talking with the Teamsters around car haul and making sure that cars aren't being hauled out of the assembly plants and to market. But we need to talk to you because this is being railed out the back door. And so what do we do about it? Nobody came to us and said that. We noticed this on our own and had to have some very harsh conversations with our mainly brothers, but brothers and sisters in the locomotive unions to help them understand that they were not going to cross picket lines. And so, I think what's the lesson I think to learn from all of this is when we're alienated and we don't look out for our allies just in the labor movement, not to mention, as Tony did, in the community, we're going to fail. So, thinking about logistics, thinking about in private sector struggles, thinking about how the employers move their cargo around, and then going to those heavily unionized sectors and workers and saying, hey, we need your solidarity. And how can we help you next time? So rail is a big issue. We have 13 craft unions on the American Railroad. They are not solidarity organizations. They're very top down, they're bureaucratic, and they don't understand solidarity really in any deep way. And so this is important for the big three, but it's also important for UPS. The most important train on a freight railroad is a UPS train. And so everything gets out of the way for that train. Happily, I'm sure the Teamsters International is working over the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way right now to make sure that they're part of the conversation in terms of making sure that the UPS struggle is successful. So thanks, everybody.
Did you finish your thought? Just to be clear, I wanted to make sure. They say if it gets good, let them fly, right? So
all good, Brother Lawrence. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. In that case, would another panel member like to comment on this important subject that we just heard? I really appreciate what he said, and I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on this situation. So, Scott.
I agree. I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Okay. Those solidarity ties are going to be so important when it comes to trying to create a log jam for the companies if they try to operate without the UAW workforce. I don't see them being very successful at that, but those ties are critical. So thank you for bringing those up, Carrie. I really appreciate it. When our members see that they can make changes in their union and their workplace through political action and solidarity, they'll gain confidence to make similar changes in our society. So that's going to be important to building not only a justice in our unions, but also justice in society. And we've seen that surge in rank and file activism. The pandemic laid bare how essential workers really are. But I'll leave my comments at that for right now, and let others chime in.
Antonio, Shante. Shante, I believe you had something.
Well, Scott pretty much covered it. Like Carrie said, organizing is going to be a big piece as far as getting our members mobilized and things like that. Again, because we have a young workforce and they have to understand the fight that we may be in for, and it is important to try to get them together. And if it's going to take being at the gates, walking the shop floor, whatever, we need to start now getting out there and getting them prepared. And I love the piece about connecting with, the other unions to help us with the fight. It's something we should have been doing long ago, not just now. We have to learn to be there on a regular basis, not just right now for us. It's an ongoing issue. So it doesn't stop, once the big three secure their contract or once the Teamsters secure their contract. It's the everyday fight that needs to continue every day.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback off it as well. I mean, I think the thing that rings true to me the most is the solidarity, right? Working together. Like a lot of times over the course of the last few decades, especially, there's always been a little divide. There's always been whatever walls up, and I think it's time we break them down. I think that we need to start working together as unions. We have to make sure that we work alongside, like I mentioned, with communities and organizations, which, as Carrie agreed, and we have to continue to do this. We have to get the public support. We have to get these community organizations together. Everybody, they have billions and billions of dollars, and our unions are fighting them with whatever millions they have. It's not enough. They have enough money that they can push out they can lobby anything. They can try to create legislation that weakens, and they've created tons of legislation that has weakened our unions, and we have to continue to fight to change those and change them back. The only way we do that is together and building coalitions and finding labor-friendly politicians if we can find them. If not, some of us are just going to have to run ourselves. We got to do what we got to do to make sure that we win this fight. This fight is a lot bigger than just UPS. This one coming up, it's bigger than UAW. It's for all workers. When we hit that picket line, if we do, we have to set a standard so high that every other company is just going to have to fall in line. It's like people say, right? The rising tide lifts all boats. We have to continue to think that way, and we have to work together. If we don't work together, we're not going to make much of a difference. And it's time to put differences aside.
I really hope to see more of that. I really do. Okay, in my head, I have, no intelligent left. We need more political education, more class. We need to build capacity. We need solidarity with each other. A rising tide does lift all boats indeed. I'm sure I'm going to watch this again because there were so many more gems that I heard. So thank you for that. And Scott, surveys show that UAW members want a fighting union. Do they understand that it's up to them? Labor Notes quotes you stating that UAW needs to both bargain strong contracts and organize the unorganized, but to be effective, you must first organize to fight back. Can you explain this? What are UAW plans to build a powerful union, put members back in the driver's seat, and give back unionism, and regaining the trust of the rank and file? 7 minutes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And thank you to EWOC for putting this on and inviting all of us here to talk about the issues that are so important to us. So the question, do members understand that they are, the union, that it's up to them to make these changes to make the UAW a fighting union? I would say they do not, for the most part. Now, there are some that do, but not enough. And we have a lot of work to do to build our members' confidence. For years, the top leadership has projected that the union is an insurance policy that you pay dues for and you receive a service. And quite frankly, the service hasn't been all that good for the last few decades. That's going to be a battle to educate our members on how key they are to the success of a militant rank and file led union. That's really important. But every day, UAWD, Unite All Workers for Democracy, the caucus that I chair, we're working every day to empower members, not only UAWD members, but rank and file members across the UAW. We're helping members to gain confidence in running for office. We're helping members to gain confidence to build a contract campaign for the upcoming contract negotiations. President Fain stepped into his leadership role with less than 6 months to prepare for the upcoming auto negotiations. And it's, that's too short of a time for a top-down leadership structure to get the message out to the membership. That's why UAWD is going to be so important to, much as the way that TDU has been for the Teamsters. We have really learned a lot from TDU and taken a lot of lessons, and thank you for all the help that, Tony, thank you for all the help that TDU has pushed our way. It's been invaluable. But it's, we've had our success because of, building confidence in the members. So I'd like to go back to the other question now. You said, what are UAW plans to build a powerful union and put the members in the driver's seat and give back unionism and regain the trust of the rank and file? You said the UAW's plans. Well, let me first say that I'm not a spokesperson for the UAW. I'm a rank and file activist. So what I say is my own words. It's not the UAW's words. But I know that we need to engage our members. Compare what engagement was under the administration caucus. Past negotiations, particularly the 2019 strike at GM, they were held under blackout conditions. The membership knew what they wanted on the picket lines. They were bringing homemade picket signs, and oftentimes leadership would take them away from them. They didn't want them to know what was being negotiated behind closed doors. In the past, members have been told to save their money just a few months before contract negotiations. If you're waiting until the last minute, especially lower paid second tier workers or temporary workers don't have the time or the capacity to save that money in that short of a time. So it was intentionally putting them in a bad situation. And then after the contract tentative agreement came out, you'd have international reps coming around and selling the contract. So we're hoping that the new leadership in the UAW, with a majority on the International Executive Board from our Reform Caucus, will bring a different philosophy, and we're beginning to see that. But we need to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they do. So President Fain is committed to more open communications with the membership. We are trying to build a contract campaign in UAWD. We've conducted some Zoom trainings. We're doing in-person trainings at any location that we can get some members that want to put on a training and start building from the bottom up that power on the shop floor. And then teaching them about the escalating tactics and what we need to do. Tony gave some great examples of escalating tactics, but they've had a year to do that escalation. We've had less than 6 months after Sean was elected. So in the UAW, there's a lot of inertia built into the system. So it's going to be tough for them to get that contract campaign going the way that O'Brien did. But we're going to be there to help them every step of the way. Some of the administration caucus members of the IAB have even bragged about dragging out the recent IEB meeting because of their opposition to some of Fain's programs and staff appointments. So because of that inertia, it's really going to be up to us as a rank and file caucus to do a lot of that groundwork. So building trust, there's been a lack of transparency, as I said, with past leaders, not only in contract negotiations, but in everything that they did. And it led to a situation where, terrible corruption infected our union. So we're fighting for more transparency and expect that from our new officers. And so, with that, I'll kind of leave it at that and see if there's any other questions.
Thank you. That was illuminating. It's real. So, Antonio, you have been helping to organize Amazon workers. In 2022, you stated that the Teamsters fight this year for a good UPS contract will help Amazon workers in their organizing drive and give them a better understanding of what the labor movement is. By taking on UPS, the Teamsters can set the standard for the entire warehouse and delivery sector. How do Teamsters plan to engage the power and experience of their rank and file members, conduct a militant battle that wins, and energize the labor movement? As as we said for Scott, not the official spokesperson, but as the most official. That's what you both are as rank and file activists. But continue, please.
Well, first I'd like to say, do I have like an hour for this one? Because I could talk about this one particular thing forever. First off, Scott, I just wanted to say to Scott, TDU did help. And, we may have given you some great advice and some of the tools, but y'all did the work. You guys were out there, you sacrificed the time, and you guys, huge victory for UAW and UAWD. You guys are amazing. As far as what I was saying in that particular article, yeah, and I mentioned, I even touched on this in some of what I said, right? We have to set a standard so high that it's just going to raise the bar for everyone. And particularly, when we think about the major improvements that we could win on a new contract, I believe it'll show the power of being in a union and the benefits, right, of collective bargaining. People have to see that. People have to know that that's what it takes. And it's not just talking about, taking a company on strike. It's about actually having to do it. You know, we're talking the talk right now, but come August 1st, if they don't meet our demands by the 31st, we will be walking the walk. And there's a lot of companies that are looking forward to seeing us fail. At the end of the day, I mean, you have Amazon, you have Walmart, you have Target, you have all these big mega billion dollar corporations that are making God knows how much money, and they're all hoping that we fail, but we can't. You know, this is everybody knows what's at stake. The unions know what's at stake, the workers knows what's at stake, and the corporations know what's at stake. I feel that the working with the Amazon workers, especially when you think about logistics, right? Teamsters have been in logistics for, you know, decades, and Amazon's only been around since like the 90s. So, you know, that's just a few decades in comparison. When you think about the strength that logistics workers have, period, in the industry, when it comes to the GDP, when it comes to the amount of goods that are serviced, the people that need their items, there's no comparison to the amount of leverage that we have as workers. And people really need to pay attention to that. You know, if Amazon workers and UPS workers coordinated and had actions together, I mean, that would be, I would say, a perfect storm. A perfect storm ready to strike down on some serious corporations, some heavy duty lightning, you know, just like the t-shirt, right? Ready to strike. I don't see how, you know, people can look at what's about to happen and think, you know, okay, this isn't going to be that serious. No, this is serious. What's about to happen is serious. We're taking it serious. A lot of corporations know what's at stake. We know what's at stake. And we're going to continue to fight. I mean, our contract, we're taking a lot of our issues are similar. Amazon workers are dealing with what some of our workers are dealing with. The only thing is, you know, our UPS drivers, when it comes to the work, are making like double or triple what some of these Amazon drivers are making, and they're using this outside contracting model, which isn't helpful. If you guys heard recently, the Teamsters did just recently organize 84 drivers in a for a DSP, outside contract, right? The delivery service partners, that the model that Amazon uses out in Palmdale, California. These workers not only won recognition and are recognized as Teamsters, but also got a contract. The contract gave them they were making $30 an hour, I believe, 3 holidays right off the back: Julio Cesar Chavez Day, Martin Luther King Day, and Juneteenth. That's the power of collective bargaining. And right off the back, of course, Amazon's going to say, no, they're not Amazon workers, that's a contractors. And now we have that. Now there's the fight, right? Joint employer. We can't lose a fight like that. We have to continue to work with workers. We have to continue to try to organize workers. And I saw somebody put up in the chat that we have to realize this is a class war. Yeah, it certainly is. There's a war on the workers, period. There's a war on the workers in this country, and the only way we're going to fight it is by building an army of organizers. That's how we're going to win. And one thing that the Teamsters have done over the last year is really use worker on worker organizing, taking guys like myself that just came off the truck a few years ago and was working inside the UPS warehouse and trained me up. And, you know, and we're out there training other workers on how to organize, how to have those conversations, those you know, agitating, right? Agitation, letting people see the vision, and getting to the task and goals that we're expecting to achieve. We're out there working with locals all over the country. You know, the Amazon division was created, working with locals all over the country, setting up programs in different areas. And we're training our workers. We're building that army of organizers. And, you know, to me, I saw it start from just 20, 30 people, you know, having conversations every couple of weeks. Now there's like, you know, forget about it. There's a whole bunch of us in there, probably close to 100. And we're having conversations on what we can do, what's working, what's not working. How are we approaching workers? What's the difference? What's working in your area that's not working in my area? And we're having those conversations, and they're making a big difference. I feel like we have a huge opportunity here to make a big difference, make a big impact on on the way workers are being treated across the board. Everybody's tired of being exploited. You know, people are sick and tired of the harassment. People are sick and tired of not being treated with dignity, not being treated with respect. People are sick and tired of not being offered just simple benefits, a pension. These are all things that all workers want at the end of the day, and all workers deserve. You know, nobody should be left out in the cold. You know, we got to look out for one another. We got to continue to build it out. And, you know, all I could say to everybody is, and I'll just end it by saying this: you have to stay united. You have to have solidarity. And, you know, we're going to put the U back in union.
You know, I know we're talking about a bunch of problems, but this feels good to me. And I see you all as kind of heroic. I would say if we're a bunch of soldiers, y'all are like the shiny ones in the front. Y'all are really holding it down. So thank you all for everything you're doing. A question to the panel. How much time do we have? Cool. What role can large established unions play in resurrecting a powerful American labor movement, considering the fragmentation of the union movement and low union density? Oh, well, actually, go ahead. And if you have anything you want to say, like lightning round answers.
Well, considering our lack of union density, unions still have a really big impact. You know, we can get our members activated and working to build that, you know, build that power that's going to be needed to restore the labor movement. The caucuses like TDU and UAWD are going to have a big part of that. But, you know, we have to get our members active in communities. But, you know, the good news is that many of our members are already active in their communities. They're embedded in their churches, in their athletic clubs, in their youth athletics, and yes, in politics. Antonio made a great point that, you know, we need to have more people running for office. What better way to build working class power than have actual workers taking on the role of, you know, town council, mayor, senator, congressman, and yeah, maybe someday president. So far, we haven't had one that was working class in quite a while, but who knows? You know, maybe we're headed there. So, you know, our members are there in the community, and you know, that's a way to build our power, our working class power, and get the word out about unions being the good guy, right? You know, for too long, and a lot of times, you know, we're our own worst enemies in many ways when we conduct union the way that you know, UAW and Teamsters have in the past. You know, we're our own worst enemies, and we you know, make ourselves look bad. So, but we know we have good people in the union. We know we have good people that are working on the shop floors that can bring that message to the communities. So that's my take on you know, how we can improve ourselves and improve the labor movement. People want to join unions now. There's surveys upon surveys that say that. It's just a matter of overcoming the inertia that has been built by business unionism.
Oh, thank you for that. So this concludes the panel discussion phase of the meeting. Thank you, panel members, for a thought-provoking discussion. Everyone is welcome to stay on for a 30-minute Q&A session. To those who need to sign off now, thank you for attending the EWAC panel discussion on 2023 contract battles. One last announcement, EWAC is launching a Spring Forward fundraiser to raise $15,000, which will enable us to hire one more staff organizer so we can support more workers in their fights to organize their workplaces. See the link in the chat finally to learn how to organize your workplace or support others organizing. Join EWAC for our next workplace organizing training. We hold these trainings every other month, and you can sign up at the link in the chat. Thank you very much for your time and energy today. First question. And thank you to those, and feel free, no pressure, no pressure. All right, so first question. Teamsters have a reputation for honoring picket lines, refusing deliveries for striking places. How could this possibly interact with rails if a nationwide UPS strike takes place? Has there been conversation with rail unions? UAW passed a resolution at a recent convention for stronger language honoring picket lines. That is open.
I don't know, Carrie, you want to take that because you're on rails? I can only speak towards,
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not privy to whatever conversations might be held between the international and the two national unions that represent railroaders inside the Teamsters. So there are 13 rail unions in this society. They're craft unions. They're top down, bureaucratic, not really geared towards organizing. Unfortunately, the generation that built up the internal organizing culture inside the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way, which again is a Teamster national union, that leadership retired, and the new leadership that took over was very comfortable getting on Steve Bannon's radio show every other week to explain themselves. So we've got some serious problems inside rail labor right now. And I know that Brother O'Brien, unfortunately, had to sort of babysit what was going on there. And if there are conversations that are happening, they're not trickling down to the rank and file leadership that I know inside both the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way. Now, I hope that folks at the International, I know that certainly the researchers involved with the UPS fight are well aware of the importance of freight rail to UPS's ability to move packages around the country. So, hopefully those conversations are happening. I know for a fact that the Fain administration is well versed in how cars and car parts move around the North American continent, and but the question is fundamentally: are there people inside these rail unions that are going to know what to do when they get called, for solidarity? I mean, it's a heavy question, and their inability to drive home an adequate contract in the last round. I mean, people can blame Biden all day. It was really much more the story of inadequate rail labor leadership, which did nothing to engage its membership in the fight. So time will tell, I guess.
Thank you. If you have a question for the panelists, you can use the Q&A function to post your question, by the way. Look down, you'll see Q&A next to chat, next to participants. Check that out. Next question. Thank you, Carrie, again. Jane McAlevy's recent book has been advocating open bargaining. How do the new leaderships intend to open up and make transparent the bargaining to spark member militancy and grow rank and file power? Is that the way? I'd love to know. Good question. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, open bargaining has been a tactic that the higher ed sector of our union has used to great effect. And it's something that, and Jane McAlevey is a higher ed worker in the UAW. So, she has experience with that. And how the current leadership is going to take that on, in auto bargaining, there's a lot of inertia built into the system already. Let me explain that Sean took office at the end of March, and the bargaining committee, bargaining teams were already put into place last November, I think, October, November, somewhere in there, when our councils met for Ford, GM, and Stellantis. So those bargaining teams, and those are leadership in the locals, right? So those are already in place before Sean even came onto the stage. So, you know, there's going to be a lot. It's not going to happen in these contract negotiations in auto. But I think what we're going to see out of this administration is more transparency, more communication during the negotiating process, and you know, doing that is going to be just a sea change for your average rank and file auto worker. As I said before, you know, bargaining was done behind closed doors, completely opaque to the members. The members knew what they wanted, but they damn sure didn't get it. You know, they had to negotiate behind closed doors because they knew they were stabbing the members in the back. So I think you're going to see a different attitude towards communications during contract negotiations. But you know, we're a long way from open bargaining in the manufacturing sector. We have a lot of work to do. We can do some of that work at the next constitutional convention because our constitution does hold us back in that category in some of the articles that we have in our constitution. So you know, that's my answer to the question. We're going to get there, but it's going to take some time and some work.
Thank you. Wonderful. That's anyone else want to rubber stamp or put the approval on open bargaining? I just want to make sure. Okay. Could Antonio explain supplements and the strategic choice O'Brien made?
Sure. So over the years, the supplements were done after the national agreement was reached. And a lot of times, you know, they kind of lingered on and the company would play a lot of games. I honestly, originally, when I heard that he was planning to do the supplements first, I was a little skeptical because I have never seen it done that way. So I wasn't sure how that would work out. And there were many members that were skeptical. So, and just so you understand a little bit, the supplements are a set. So as 350,000 UPS workers across the country, every area has its own regional type contract, or maybe a local has its own, like local 804 actually has its own supplement. 705, I believe, has a white paper agreement as far as like UPS work goes, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have Western region, Central region, Southern region, you know, and those are specific to that area. And then the national master language is the blanket for everyone. A lot of times they deal with mostly the wages and a few other things. And supplementally, we can get things like maybe get a couple more sick days, a holiday, and things of that nature. But what I like about this tragedy was that they were forced to really grind on these supplements because, you know, they don't have a choice. They have to get the supplements done or he's not even going to speak to them on a national level. So it was pretty interesting to see because they did show up in Washington ready to go. And he was like, not happening. And it was like, okay, it's never been done before. So it was quite interesting to hear, you know, a lot of the executive board members and a lot of people that were chosen on the negotiating committee that were rank and file workers that were there and got to hear and got to witness that. So yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big change. And it really put a lot of pressure on the company to bargain in good faith, because there were some locals that were showing up to bargain. And there were times where UPS would show them how they felt by not even coming to the room. So could you imagine as an executive board and your negotiating rank and file members showing up, and then this team of UPS managers aren't even coming to the table? I mean, it was disrespectful. So I believe O'Brien put them right in their place, and they were showing up a lot after that. And right now, from my understanding, is a lot of them have reached tentative agreements, and they will be starting national negotiations really soon. But clock is ticking. July 31st is, I believe, less than 90 days away. So you know. UPS better keep their eye on their watch.
Thank you. And one more thing, someone, I don't know if you have an answer, feel free to say nothing, but the bit about Teamsters and open bargaining, we never heard anything about it. Do you have any opinion on that, Antonio?
Well, again, I'm not privy to a lot of those conversations, but I do understand that there were some NDAs signed, but the International created an app which was putting out information every week that can be updated, and you were actually able to see what was happening in negotiations all across the country. So there was a sense of transparency there. People did get to kind of witness a sense of open bargaining, though a lot of what was said, I guess, was in a lot of closed sessions, but there were rank and file members there on those negotiating committees. And the information has been put out and continues to get put out. And as a matter of fact, we're getting another update coming this weekend. They're doing a webinar where Sean O'Brien will be giving a big update to everyone.
Thank you. What was the name of that app? I'm just curious.
The UPS Teamster app.
Oh, same. Okay. Thank you. All right. Good answers and questions so far. The Teamsters are rightfully fighting against the two-tier system introduced under the Hoffa regime as a bargaining priority. Auto workers have, for many more years, been devastated by tiering. How much of a priority is that for the UAW, and what is the plan of attack to do away with tiers in auto?
I think I'm gonna take a stab at this. I know getting rid of the two-tier system is a big ticket item for us because it does. I can only speak for my facility. It does create a hostile work environment. I mean, if you're someone that makes $33 an hour working next to someone who's making 15, it's not a good work day. So the equal pay piece is huge for us because you should be able to make the same money that I make doing the same job that I make. Again, for us, it creates a hostile work environment. And for those of us that have been around, we know it wasn't designed. It was never really designed to get onto the production floor. And it just kind of, Scott, was that what, 2007 or the 11 contract where they just kind of forced it on us? It was supposed to go in a totally different, it was supposed to go in a totally different direction, and it was just shoved down our throat. So I mean, I know, like I said, that's a big thing for us to get rid of that because everyone needs to be made whole. We want them to fight the same fight that we're fighting, so they need to be made whole as well, so that we can be a stronger union. I mean, it's huge for me, and I'm not an in-progression worker, and I hate to see them have to go through what they go through because they're actually treated differently, and this is just not fair. So, like I said, I think that's a top priority, to get rid of the two-tier system and make every UAW member whole.
Yeah, and if I might add, the tiers
Please.
isn't relegated to pay. It's right now they're getting closer to the pay. They can get to the top pay scale. It just takes 8 years, right? Some have gotten there a little bit quicker, but in general, it's taken 8 years to get to top pay. But that still leaves them without a pension, without a defined benefit pension. They got a 401k instead. And on top of that, healthcare and retirement, that to me is just huge. These jobs on the assembly line beat your body up. And to think about having to retire and then go out on the open market and use your 401k to purchase healthcare on the open market when you've been beat up by the assembly line for 30-35 years, that's not going to work. And that's something that we are very intently looking at and going to demand in from the rank and file perspective. It's got to be on the negotiating table. I know Sean was against the tiered wage and benefit structure from the very beginning. He came out publicly against it in 2007 when it came out. So yeah, ending tiers is top priority. And there's another tier that they've built in. Everybody starts as a temp now. So you don't even start to accrue seniority for several years as a temporary worker. And I don't understand how they can consider somebody temporary when they work for them for years. So, you know, those are things that have been negotiated away in past contracts. It's going to take a Herculean effort by our members to win those concessions back that were just so cavalierly negotiated away in past contracts. But we're ready to take on the fight. That's all I know.
Hey, don't have to get ready if you stay ready. Thank you. Next question. Capitalists in the 50s harassed the UE and slashed their membership, but as the UE recounts, the UA leader walked into negotiations with a big multiple questions, sorry, with a big CO with the leaders of 6, 7, 8 other unions. Can we do what UE did? I repeat, capitalists in the 50s harassed the UE and slashed their membership, but the UE later walked in to negotiations with a big CO with the leaders of 6, 7, 8 other unions. Can we do that? Does that question make sense? No, I see
No,
it's
I don't know what the NEGOs means or leaders of 6, 7, 8, 6 or 7 or 8 other unions.
Yeah,
was it a combined negotiations? I don't understand that history. I haven't studied it. Maybe somebody else has.
I think this is a fairly common tactic that unions use, which is inviting guests to come observe bargaining. So, you know, I mean, I think it would be really, really cool if UPS negotiators brought rail labor chiefs in at one point, or if UAW negotiators invited the ILWU and the ILA on the East Coast to come, you know, sit in on bargaining and explain our position in terms of what's going on. You know, just to help the employers understand that, you know, we're not by ourselves, right? And, you know, in my experience at the bargaining table, we've often brought union leaders from other countries. I sat at the Bayer pharmaceutical table in Berkeley, California, and we had German trade union leaders, you know, sitting at the table with us and making it clear that there were going to be problems back home if this contract didn't get settled, and if Bayer didn't, you know, say that they were going to stay in Berkeley for another decade. So these things have been done. It's always good for us to show the employers that we built alliances, one within our own movement, but secondly, in the broader community, like Brother Scott was saying earlier.
excellent. Thank you, Carrie. Next question. How much do each of these new administrations in both these unions seem to be paying attention to the many members in their unions outside their traditional sector, like higher education, where both of them have significant memberships here in California and nationally? Does that make sense? How much do each of these new administrations in both these unions seem to be paying attention to the many members in their unions outside their traditional sector? Transportation and auto, like higher ed, where both of them have significant memberships.
Well, I think I've talked a little bit about the higher ed sector of our union and how inspiring they are. Sean knows, you know, that he has a good base in the higher ed section of our union. So, you know, I don't think he has any intention of ignoring that segment of our union. And in fact, there are 2 international executive board members right now that came out of higher ed. The director of Region 9A and the director of Region 6 are both came out of the higher ed, you know, sector of the UAW. So he can't ignore them, even if he wanted to. So, higher ed is here to stay. They're making their mark, they're making their impression, and I can say I'm impressed.
Yeah, so yeah, 100% is the answer. Last question. Several have asked how we can help. Other than showing up to a picket line, how can non-union workers support and be in solidarity with these two strikes? Those of us who aren't union members, how can we best help you at this time? How can the public help before the picket line comes out? I belong to a large public employee union. How can I help? The floor is yours.
I'll just jump in real fast. What you can help by, well, first of all, social media is big, right? I remember in the 97 strike, we didn't have any of that. It didn't exist. You could definitely help amplify whatever it is that you're hearing, amplifying, whether it be tweeting, Facebook, Instagram, all of these are out there. Speaking to your neighbors, one-on-one conversations about what's going on, maybe putting a sign in your window, I support UPS workers, I support UAW workers. There are a whole bunch of things that you can try just to show some solidarity and show some support. And yeah, coming to the picket line, absolutely, bring a couple bottles of water. But even before the picket line, right, come to the escalating actions, come to the rallies, come and show support when you hear that UPS workers or UAW workers are doing some kind of action, whether it be for a rally at a facility or whether it be, getting behind legislation that actually helps workers. Right now, we're working on a few things like the temperature bill, which would essentially, it's a temperature standards bill, which would help, create a temperature standard in most facilities which you never had. Forcing the corporations to put air conditioning in the truck, forcing companies to put air conditioning in the warehouses, keeping the heat up when it's cold outside. We need something like that. When you come to those kind of things and you're supporting at a press conference or at a rally or a day that it's going to be the day that they're coming out with the legislation and letting people know, you should try to support those things, pay attention to what's going on, especially when it comes to legislation that's going to help our workers.
Excellent. Who else? Anybody else? How can we help? How do we get in?
Well, I think Tony, made the case very well. I don't really have anything to add, just to accent it. Showing up at the picket lines is important, but social media is huge, and again, it's something that we haven't had for for a long time, but it's now a tool that we're using. This kind of platform here is a tool that we're using to get the word out. So just share all the stories that you run across on your social media. That's going to be very helpful. And when working class people run for office, vote for working class people. That's how we're going to build power in the city councils, in the state houses, in Washington, and that's the best way for working class people to have our backs, is be part of it, be part of the labor movement, be part of moving the labor movement forward in everything that you do, and that includes standing on the picket lines, having those conversations with workers, building them up, and letting them know that you have their back. Because if you look at a community like Belvedere, Illinois, where Stellantis just idled a major assembly plant for no reason. I mean, they're rolling in money right now, and they decided just to throw all those workers out of a job, and many of them have had to transfer halfway across the country, and it's just horrible way to treat your community, the community that has allowed you to build there, and those people now have, or that corporation has devastated that community. It's, you know, the schools aren't going to have as many kids now because families had to move. The mom and pop restaurants and grocery stores aren't going to, you know, many of them won't survive after Chrysler, or I'm sorry, Stellantis. It wasn't Chrysler, it was Stellantis that did this to them. And we need to put an end to that kind of crap.
Sounds like we've got work to do. And I'm hopeful after this, not just optimistic, but hopeful. So thank you for everything everyone said today. This concludes the meeting on the 2023 contract battles. Thank you to our excellent panel members for a thought-provoking and inspiring discussion. Thank you to all the participants who joined us. Just to repeat our earlier announcement, EWAWD is launching a Spring Forward fundraiser to raise $15,000 to allow us to hire one more staff organizer so we can support more workers in their fights to organize their workplaces. See the link in the chat. Finally, to learn how to organize your workplace or support others organizing, join EWAWD for our next workplace organizing training. We hold these trainings every other month, and you can sign up at the link in the chat. Let's give it up for our panelists. Right.
Let's give it up for EWAC for having this panel.
Thank you, EWAC.
Yeah, thank you, EWAC. You guys are great. And let's not stop here, right? It's not about these contracts and these strikes coming. It's looking beyond them, right? It's not finished just because we win a strike. We got to continue to do the work, y'all. So let's keep it going.
Yeah. Is there a hashtag that each of you, speaking of social media, is there like one that you promote that you are concerned about? I just want to make sure everyone knows.
I think the central location for us is UAWD.org. And from there you can find our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, all that stuff. Just go to UAWD.org.
Yeah, Teamsters for Democratic Union.org as well. A lot of great information on there. And Teamsters United, and anything that has to do with the Teamsters period, the Teamsters has their own also. So the IBT has one, and it's pretty it shows you everything that's going on. So
Excellent, thank you. Shante, Carrie, anything you want to add here? Any last words?
I just enjoyed being on the panel. Thank you for having me. It was a great discussion.
It was our pleasure.
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
All right, y'all are rock stars. Again, we need more labor or journalism or something so that your stories are all told everywhere all the time. This needs to be like extra read all about it. But thank you for your time and energy again today. I think that's about it. If anybody has any other questions, I'm not gonna be opposed to you coming off mute and saying something right now. We've got 2 minutes.
I want to say shout out to Labor Notes. I just saw somebody put that in there. Labor Notes is a great resource, and they're amazing. They have a huge convention in Chicago. They're going to have one in April. The TDU convention is coming up in early November. So those are things that you want to watch out for, especially if you're a Teamster. But if you're not a Teamster and you're in another, Labor Notes has all kinds of unions, all kinds of people. It's amazing.
Everybody check out Labor Notes. I'm educated. Thank you. Feel free. I don't know if you actually have the capability. We are in a webinar. I don't know if y'all could come off mute.
I think you have to allow them off mute, or the host does.
Oops. Okay, so my bad. I'm over here thinking you're being shy. So thank you all. It is now 9:30.